외국인의 시각으로 한국인을 볼 때 가장 놀라운 것은 한국인의 정체성이라고 합니다. 주한 외신기자클럽 대표를 역임한 영국 가디언의 마이클 브린 기자는 한국인에 대해 한국인들에게 가장 깊고 성스럽게 여겨지는 연결지점은 민족이다. 한민족과 그에 기반한 국가에 관한 생각은 한국인들의 엄청난 정서적 반응을 끌어낸다. 한국인들은 심한 공격을 받고 멍들어버린 역사를 가지고 있지만 기적에 가까운 회복력을 통해 온전하게 남아있는 사람들이라고 평가합니다. 세계에서 한국처럼 하나의 민족과 언어를 중심으로 나라가 형성되고 유지해온 경우는 드물다는 것이죠. 따라서 한국인이라는 개념은 다분히 민족적인 개념이며 한국인이 가진 공동체 의식은 국가에 대한 주인의식과 결합하면 때때로 국가적 사건에 대처하는 데 있어서 엄청난 결집력을 보여줍니다. 한국인은 여전히 공동체 정신과 남을 배려하고 자신을 희생하는 것을 중요시하며 위기나 자연재해가 닥쳤을 때 성금모금운동부터 스포츠 응원 문화에 이르기까지 단합된 단결력에 있어 상상을 초월하는 폭발적인 저력을 발휘하기도 합니다. K-팝, K-뷰티, K-무비, K-드라마 등 세계가 한국의 K-시리즈에 열광하고 있는 현재 한국의 것에 대한 관심이 커짐과 동시에 한국인에 대한 관심도 커지고 있습니다. 미국 LA에 있는 서던 캘리포니아 대학교에서 한국학연구소 소장을 맡고 있는 데이비드 강 교수는 한국인 아버지와 미국인 어머니 사이에서 태어나 미국에서 자란 한국계 미국인이지만 단 한 번도 정체성에 혼란을 겪은 적이 없다고 합니다. 한국인의 어떤 부분이 그토록 강력하게 작용하는 것인지 강의를 번역해 공유합니다.
We have had these wonderful talks. I direct the Korean Studies Institute here at USC. And Salpi and I have talked, we've shared ideas about turning a rooftop into a garden where we can hold parties and stuff like that. And when she was talking about Armenian identity and what we're going to do, I started chatting about how I grew up as a Korean. And I don't have anything nearly as profound as Manuel's talk about larger themes in LA or changing identity. But I am going to make one point to you today. So I'm going to tell you a story about myself, which is the most interesting. But the question is this, and the point I'm going to make is this about the social construction of identity. And what I mean is, we tend to think there's sort of two sides. If anybody here has had a class in identity, like, I don't know, women's studies or blah, blah, Armenian studies, they always talk about how identity is socially constructed. But we all believe that it's actually biologically given, depending on where you're born and who your mom and dad are. And so I'm going to talk about what I mean, because it is clearly socially constructed. And what I'm going to do is tell you a couple things about mine, because I don't have any identity crisis at all. I don't have any doubt who I am. I view myself as Korean American, and I've always viewed myself as Korean American. And my entire life, no one has ever questioned that. Up until after living from California, my folks met at Cal in the 1950s. I moved on the East Coast. I moved back to Los Angeles about 6 years ago. And for the first time in my life, I heard people saying, well, since you're mixed race, blah, blah, blah. And the first time somebody said that to me, oh, me? And I've had that happen a dozen times when people say, oh, since you're mixed race, as if we're all one crowd, and here we all know what it means to be hapa, that's another word, or mixed identity and things like that. And I realized I needed to start explaining why, even though my mother might be called white, her maiden name was Hildegard Ivy Smith. There's no more waspy name than that, right? I don't view myself as mixed race. And I think this is interesting because it shows how identity is socially constructed. It depends. It is not biologically given. Well, your mom's white, therefore you're mixed race. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean. If the category doesn't exist in the world, you don't have that identity. The category of mixed race is new, and even now it is not really that widely used. Most of California, where I grew up in the Bay Area, was white, ethnic, everything. You didn't have a mixed race category. So I'm going to talk to you about it. There's two ways. There's internal, there's family, and then there's larger situational, right? And I'm going to do a couple things. And the first one is, there are 5 reasons in my 10 minutes. I'm going to give you 5 reasons, 3 internal and 2 external, about why I view myself as Korean American. And at the end, I'll conclude just in general. I think it's interesting. We can all think about how do we form who we think we are. So the 3 internal are this, right? The first one, the internal identity, there's me and my sister. Kyopta, right? My father came from Korea in 1955 to study at Berkeley. He got a PhD in physics. He met my mom there, and we got married. And there's 3 things. So first of all, we are a here's my name. This is my given name. If you go to my birth certificate, that's my name. And I never use my middle name, Chanung, right? I just do C, because I don't care. But that is my given name. And my entire life growing up, I wished I had a normal middle name like Bob or Sam. Because imagine being in 1970s California, and this is your middle name, and people do, ah, ha, ha, right? You know. And that's my name in Korean, right? Actually, it's Chinese characters, but that's my name in Korean. Now, what does this mean? We are a patrilineal society. I didn't make the rules, but you go through your father. And so if you don't know, if you don't see a picture of me, if you just see what my name is, and 99% of the people in the world, when they read what I write, when they sign up for my classes, they see that, and what do they expect? They expect someone who's Korean American. In fact, I've had students come up to me and say, wow, your English is really good. I was really worried, that you weren't going to be able to speak English very well. Because this is what they see. And if you see me, I don't quite look like Sam, Sam the Surfer or something like that. So I didn't make the rules. But we are a patrilineal society, and I am defined by my father's identity. And in fact, I don't know if I have these things here. If you can read Korean, I am the 39th generation. I don't know if it says it here. Yes. We can trace that. If you read the Chinese, that's founder number 1, 720 AD. I'm the 39th generation. And point number 2, I'm the eldest son of the eldest son of the, I'm a 9th generation eldest son. The founder goes back to 720, and we know he existed. My link to Korea is 1,300 years. It's an extraordinary sense of belonging. And if you go down to second generation, third generation, fourth generation, eventually you get here to the bottom, which is our family right there, which is, again, I'm not saying you can read Chinese, but the point is everybody's got a book where my son is the 40th generation. He's a 10th generation eldest son of this family. Of course I feel Korean American. Of course I have deep roots to Korea. How can you not? My grandfather still says, 40th generation, and pats his grandson on the head, right? So again, I didn't make these rules, but why do I think I'm Korean? Here's why. Right? Number 2, my mom is an orphan. She was born in Oakland, and her mother died, and her father was a doctor, died of a heart attack at age 5. Mother died of one of those diseases they can fix now. She was raised by her grandmother. So yeah, she's Hildegard Ivy Smith, but I did not grow up with any white side of the family. This is my family that I grew up with. Everybody's Korean, except my mom. And my mom married into the Korean family knowing what she was getting because she wanted large families. She grew up without anyone except Granny. She wanted those large, warm Korean families and Asian families. So this is, my grandparents lived with us until I was about 8. This is on their 60th birthday for my grandfather. It's a big celebration, right? Now, I'm going to show you a picture from, this is like 1973 or something like that, right? There's me, there's my sister, there's my dad and my mom over there, right? You have to look to figure out which one is not the Korean one, don't you? Right? Now, so what we did is in our garage, we had a big 60th party. We invited all the friends. We have all this Korean food, as you can see, the bounty of Korean food. And this is what all of our American friends, oops, wait, there we are again. We're lined up. There's my mom on the right? This is their view of the Korean food. They're all like, what is that stuff, right? It's hilarious. You look at this picture and my sister's diving in and all the American people are wondering, what is this Korean food? I mean, this is from the 1970s. Nobody knew what kimchi was back then, right? So if you grow up with a Korean family, a Korean immigrant family, where there is no white side of the family, there is no Uncle Tommy. We didn't go every Thanksgiving to, grow up with a bunch of white cousins who did American things. We only did Korean things. And I'm the eldest son of a family that goes back generations to a country, right? So internally, there's a whole lot. And what I mean by this is not that everyone's like me. It's socially constructed. Different people with different parents and different situations would have a different identity. But if you ask why I view myself as Korean American, there you go. Right? That was not in question. Right? The California I grew up in 1970, I'm too old to actually have a hybrid identity. I'm too old to have frankly, an identity crisis. Right? I grew up in a time when if you go back to 1970, Asians were 0% of the population. Hispanic was 12%? I don't want to give away how old I am, but I was in elementary school in the 70s, right? So you grew up, everybody's white. There's a tiny smattering of Asians. And the second thing is this, the category is still not mixed race. There still is not really a mixed race category. Obama is not the first mixed race president. No, he's not. He's always viewed, essentially, as the first black president. Tiger Woods. He's not the first Hapa mixed race Asian golfer. Nobody thinks of him that way, right? The categories have to exist for you to then define yourself within those categories. Or you can create your own category. I mean, it's partly by how you define yourselves or whatever. But if today we are still not talking about mixed race, it's very hard for someone like me who grew up in the 60s and 70s, wearing Korean clothes, eating Korean food, celebrating with a whole mess of Korean family, to think of myself as Korean American. And that's what's so interesting about the social construction of identity. I mean, I think, my story is interesting only because Korean, we always talk about it, and I can always play I'm the 39th generation of this particular Korean clan. And I have immediate entree into all of Korea because okay, come right this way, And I totally understand if your father is not Korean, but your mother is Korean and she marries someone, who's not Korean, you have a totally different identity. I get it. But the point I want to leave you with as I finish up is not only how awesome my family is. Oh, that's the main point. No, but the point I want to leave you with is how much who we are and who we think about ourselves is really socially, it is you, and you're going to feel differently about you because of where you might have grown up even in a different town in California and had different experiences.
여러분의 소중한 의견을 남겨주세요. 바쁘시더라도 구독과 좋아요 부탁드립니다. 지금까지 단골이시였습니다. 시청해주셔서 감사합니다.